Yo, what's going on? Terrell, Hall of Fame, D-Line. This is Bully Rants. This one is really just about breeding. Good friend of mine, Alberts, asked, what I found out about the certain lines. This probably will not be the answer that you expect. The American Bully is sort of screwed up. It's a lot screwed up, and a lot of it has to do with some of the things that I continuously rant about, yell about, scream about, kick about, never get any answers about. But if we were going back, say 10, 15 years, it would have been a lot simpler to say this blood and, mixing these couple dogs with this and that, and it makes it simple to breed. Nowadays, it's not that simple, and one of the biggest problems, it starts off with Gotti line. The old Gotti line dogs, of course, were gray line dogs, and you knew what to expect. You knew what the size, the bone, the head structure. You knew what type of dog to expect. Well, somewhere along the line, a lot of people who claimed that they were Gotti line or represented Gotti line, they started mixing other dogs into it. Flat out, no other way around it. You can see the distinct look change. You can see a lot of the things they were doing. We've heard the rumors. We've heard people take credit for their nonsense, And with that being done in our community, it makes it damn near, I won't say impossible, but very hard to put a gauge on how to properly use Gotti blood, and that goes down to the stars of today, or the people who claim that, this blood or that blood. They're showing the very distinct signs of being other dogs, or other dogs mixed in. So what you see on the pedigree now is just nearly impossible. Now, when you go to the Edge family lasted longer, We're starting to see some changes in the Edge family, but not in my yard. But we're starting to see some changes in the Edge family. But when you talk about the Edge family, man, throughout the years, the one thing I'll say is that you've seen many different combinations, and it seems like they all sort of work. And the reason why I think they all work, before I go into some of my favorites, is because when you look at the way Razor's Edge was bred to make Razor's Edge, it was a lot of like characteristic breedings. It wasn't necessarily a bunch of line breeding or anything specific to a certain line. What it was going for a look. So most of the dogs were picked off of their physical characteristics more so than their blood. So having that being done, you have a lot of dogs who have the same type of characteristics, which henceforth brings us to the term, consistency. And, a lot of people think consistency is just in the blood. It's not consistent. You can have two totally different bloods, two totally different blood lines, or whatever you want to call them, and they run consistent with each other because they have the same looks and the same characteristics. You see it in dogs who are more identical to each other, like, my favorite to talk about, a Rottweiler, or even a Bull Mastiff. You see it done a lot more in those breeds. But in this breed, we because of our breed being started off between basically two bloodlines, we get stuck in the whole line breeding, inbreeding thing when like characteristics has a lot to do with it. Now in the Edge family, of course, Paco has the Paco strand of blood, which is actually a little roll with some short shot. That blends well with almost everything. It could be the tie-in to everything. You can see Paco blood going to Nemesis and being very good. You can see it going to Kamali and being very good. You can see, I've seen it go to Hef and it was very good. Around the board, anything that you took Paco to in the Edge family, you seen good results. I didn't see a lot of just where it faltered and it had problems. I think Hef was just like the magic. That was the icing on the cake, because a lot of stuff that you bred Hef to just didn't never turn out like that. But when you bred, when they put the Paco and the Hef blood together, and right off the top of my head, I'll forget that male's name. It was a fawn male with the white on the face, but he was a beautiful dog. I got a chance to check him out. And in Atlanta before they sold him to Puerto Rico. Beautiful dog, big head, great structure. The Cairo blood, the one thing you want to do with the Cairo blood in general is just, at this point, you don't want to go heavy into breeding it too much to itself. All of us who do have Cairo dogs, if you look back, we've got heavy Cairo. Cairo was bred a lot to itself. he was almost like Remy before Remy, you know, where it was a lot of just breed Cairo back to Cairo and search for Cairo. Well, the problem with that is, and that's where you hear people talk about the kinks and why do I get kinks, the bulldog theory. Well, really, you know, people wisen up. Everything that has a bulldog feature is not necessarily a bulldog. You know, those are a lot of times genetic defects that are coming from the blood getting too close. Just like, you know, people talked about Little Roe. If you look at Little Roe, instead of talking about Little Roe being a bulldog, look at it, he was a dwarf. He's the big head, the big protruding head, the high rear, the one testicle. Other little issues that went on with Little Roe, even though he was a hell of a producer, he was a dwarf. It had nothing to do with adding in a bulldog. You know, one of my favorite combinations still is I like to do big to small more so than the bloodlines, and you know, because I've had great success at taking a smaller like pocket dog and taking it to a big standard and getting a dog that was almost in between, and it didn't work like that all the time. Of course, sometimes you just end up with, you know, either or. But a lot of times we were able to put some size on a smaller dog and give it the bullier appearance that we like. You know, you see that happen many a times, you know. I mean, you look at the situation that made Hallie with Thing being a very large, not Thing, Thug being a very large dog and Shamu being a smaller dog. Same situation with Hallie being a bigger bitch than Gargoyle was, but at the same time, the offspring was great. You know, everything in this Edge family, in my personal opinion, is interchangeable. I haven't seen a lot of Edge combinations that you would put together. Some of the trickier blood is Excalibur, you know. And some people like just have incredible success with Excalibur to where they can keep breeding it to itself and they still get good results. But for the most part, if you really don't know what you're doing, Excalibur is one of those dogs that goes great with everything in the Edge family, but the bad breedings I have seen off of him has been Excalibur to Excalibur, and it seems like only certain people can do it, but when they do it, it's incredible. You know, right now, one of the bloods that it looks like goes well with almost everything is Bullmaster. You know, Bullmaster, what Fernando is doing with Bullmaster is amazing. You know, not breeding him a lot, but every time the dog has been bred, you know, the dog has produced like incredibly, you know, very incredibly. And I mean, it's a hard question to answer, as y'all see as I go on and on and on about it, because I don't believe that we've established ourselves as having true bloods. There are some strands, there are certain dogs, but it gets broken down right off top. You know, if you have a Denzel dog, most of the time, by the time, you know, your Denzel blood is a grandkid most times, or a great grandkid. So, you know, even if it's a triple great grandkid or a triple grandkid, it's still not exactly Denzel. So for me to say, oh, this is how you breed Denzel to that, it doesn't make sense, because your dog, if you look at it percentage wise, your dog is less than 25% of this dog's blood. So I can't count that as the blood. The one thing I would say is, you know, with all bloods, is you do the research on what they produce and you go for those characteristics. Don't go for the blood necessarily, because no blood is just direct and straight on a straight line, because too many people are playing with it. Go for the characteristics. Look at that pedigree and look back at that pedigree and see if, okay, every dog on here pretty much has the same head that I like. Or most of them, the grand majority has the same head that I like. What about the feet? Are we dealing with the type of feet that I like? Are we dealing with these issues that I want to avoid? By putting all this together, excuse me, I must be getting tired, but by putting all these things together, it allows you to come up with a good mathematical equation of your percentages of you getting, what's my percentage on his head? It's simple. You know, how many dogs had it, how many didn't, you know, do the math. And you can get your percentage. Same thing with your, you know, the probability of you pulling for certain flaws and things. You know, it's not an exact science, but it's very, very well, you know, put together. But as far as, I don't believe in our line breeding theory right now. And the reason why is because no one has really established a solid line. Some of us has been breeding long, and we've had a couple changes in our programs throughout it, but you don't see it it's very, very few kennels that can say, I've bred this way for 20 years, this exact blood, tweaking it here and there to make this exact product as I described. You don't really see that. So I really don't believe in the theory of bloodlines inside the inside the American Bully community. Even Razor's Edge. Razor's Edge has like 7 or 8 different looks that you can go off of, and lines within the lines. So, you know, as far as breeding the bloodlines, I do always say trust the blood, but at the same time, trust your eyes and understand that you are looking for something that is bigger than just what's on that piece of paper, because as we know in the bully community, a lot of what's on that paper is a lie. But I know that was a lot of rambling. Hopefully you got something out of it. Catch you on the next one. Peace.